About 10 years ago, I was a youth pastor serving at a church plant in St. Paul. We had about 15 to 20 students, anywhere from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and a lot of our families, they experienced homelessness. They bounced around. And fortunately, our program, we were able to rent a couple of those 15-passenger vans from a local college. And we had enough adult volunteers that we could drive around the Twin Cities doing routes, picking up the kids no matter where they went. This was a big deal to me because for me, a core part of youth ministry is adults being willing to consistently commit and show up for students. So for me, it was a really big deal that no matter where our families were in any given week, we would come get those students. And the way our program grew was from word of mouth, just families knowing other families. And I remember at one point this mother came up to me and she really wanted her kindergartner, Timothy, to join our program. Now, like I said, our youngest grade at the time was 3rd grade, and I was already kind of struggling to make our experiences in our programming just really meaningful for 3rd grade through 8th grade, and our program was kind of late. It was like 6 to 8 at night. But either way, Timothy's mom just really wanted him to be part of the program, and truth be told, I was 23, and I had no idea how to say no to people, so Timothy was in. And, he was great. He was very sassy. He was very funny. We were really glad he was part of the program. One evening after youth group, I was doing drop-offs for one of the 15-passenger vans. And I was doing my classic strategy of blasting the heat and blasting the radio. Because in my experience, I learned that wave of warmth and noise tended to tire the kids, get them to relax and not be as rowdy. And I was dropping them off, a couple kids here, a bunch of kids there, my last stop. And I brought the van back to the college that it came from, hopped in my car, and I was headed home, reflecting on another great night of youth group. Then I get a phone call. Hey, Andrew, did you drop Timothy off? We haven't seen him. I was like, yeah, I dropped Timothy off. He was in that stop with a bunch of kids. And they're like, okay, we'll keep looking. And then my mind's racing, and I'm like, okay, did I see Timothy? Like, did he get off with those kids? I just assumed he had. And then I get another call. Hey, Andrew, we talked to some of the other kids. They said they don't think they saw Timothy get off at the bus stop. And I panic, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm coming. Like, I'm coming to your house right away. I hang up, and I immediately call our senior pastor of the church plant, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't know where he is. I don't know where he is. I don't know where to start looking. I hope he's okay. I'm positive I'm about to get fired or sued or something. I slam a quick U-turn, and I just start speeding back to that college. I just had this thought. I'm like, all right, hold up. What if he's still in the van? Right? And part of me really wanted him to be in the van because then I knew he was okay. But then part of me was like, oh, shoot, if he's in the van, he might be in there right now, really worried, really panicking because he's all by himself, in this van. So I get to the college, I park my car, I'm sprinting to the van, I'm fumbling with my phone because I'm trying to get the flashlight out. I get to the car, I shine it in, and sure enough, Timothy's in the back seat, curled up in a little ball, fast asleep. Thank God. And then in the aftermath, I realized, a lot of the other kids, they didn't realize Timothy fell asleep. And I didn't either, and I did a terrible job of, counting heads at each stop and, checking the van after I returned it. And it's safe to say that Timothy's mom was livid. She was very upset with me and had every right to be. And then one of the other moms in our youth program talked with her and basically vouched for me. Basically said, yes, what Andrew did was very dumb, very irresponsible, but I need you to know this isn't who he is. At that point, I had known this particular mom and her family for a couple years now. And she put an effort in to basically, help this other mom, like, obviously affirm her feelings about, how stupid of a thing I did, but also to say, hey, that's not the whole story. And honestly, I'll never forget that. Mainly because I deserved to be chewed out. I deserved consequences. I deserved, for people to be mad at me. But without me deserving it, here was a person in my life who saw me, who cared for me, and tried to get other people to see me as well. Friends, a big part of the reason I'm here working at this church is my love for community. In its most perfect and most idealistic and pure form, the Christian community is meant to be an eclectic group of folks, right? From different walks of life, different personalities, identities, backgrounds, different degrees of belief or disbelief. And the thing that binds us is God's love, right? That we all know that we're made in God's image and we're unconditionally loved despite our imperfections. And, ideally we're committed to this journey of life where we're trying to be the best versions of ourselves, the most authentic versions of ourselves as we're made in God's image. And we seek that in all things, our relationships, our communities, the world, that they can have the same goal of redemption and reconciliation. Welcome, beloved. Welcome, beloved. That's this church's first, and I would argue most important core value. The tagline for church states, "We are each beloved and welcomed unconditionally by God. In turn, having been loved and welcomed, we strive to love and welcome all people no matter what." At the same time, God's love is an invitation to transformation. We are loved as we are, but we're never left to stay that way. To encounter Jesus is to be changed. So quite simply, we want to be a people who are about that, right? Who welcome all into God's beloved community. And that critical word is all. I think a lot of times we get a little wishy-washy in what all means, or we're not super specific and we're a little vague about who all means. But this is addressed a little bit by Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount. If you are familiar with this kind of well-known sermon of his, it's in Matthew 5, and it starts with, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And this is welcome, beloved. It's not a crew of people that fits society's definition of, blessed or privileged. It's not a group of individuals highly touted for their abilities or talents or special standing in society. It's just a group of people leaning in to this idea of being beloved as they are and seeks to see people as Jesus sees them. Not as how society typically sees them. So instead of enemy or stranger or foreigner, they're seen as neighbor, as welcomed, as beloved. And actually, they're just seen. They're just seen for who they are. Kind of like the mom did for me after I lost Timothy. And this is what we want to be about here in youth group. Leah and Madison know this about me. Much of what motivates me in youth group and ministry is to get us to start thinking tangibly. But what does it mean to love your neighbor? That we know that it's one of the two greatest commandments: love God and love your neighbor. And I think historically we treat it like this abstract, kind of warm feeling commandment. But really, I want us to be talking about, what does that really mean in practice? What does that really mean in how we show up and how we interact with people? where we wouldn't always think to include them? And how do we help people actually feel welcomed, actually feel seen, actually feel like they belong and they are loved? It's why in this youth ministry's core values, if you go on our website, a few months ago, it clearly states, LGBTQIA plus friends, we want to proclaim clearly and specifically that we not only welcome you, but we also affirm and celebrate you here. To me, that was long overdue, and kind of a bare minimum step for us as a youth ministry. And my hope is that, that's not the end. We continue to lean in, we continue to have the conversations, show up for people, get to know them, and build on these relationships. My hope is that all of us together, we embody this idea of welcome beloved for anyone who shows up, who might consider this place as a second home. Friends, what does this mean for us to practice and participate in this idea of living out welcome beloved, in our lives? And I'll start by saying it's not easy, right? Usually worthwhile things aren't easy. You know that. But essentially we're asking you to humanize your enemies, to live out radical love instead of angry hate, to trust the hard process of reconciliation and redemption instead of the knee-jerk reaction of dismissing or labeling or excluding. So my simple question is, who is the other to you right now? It's pretty easy to see. It's pretty easy to know that right now in election season, whether it's the conservative right or the liberal left, whether it's the folks who are calling the pandemic a hoax, or it's the folks who are infringing on our individual rights, whether it's the racists or the sexists or the homophobic, or the socialists or the Marxists or the un-American. Could be any of those things. And it doesn't even have to really be just other, right? It's pretty clear as Christ followers, we also need to be considering those in the margins and the oppressed, those overlooked by society. That's pretty clear in Jesus' teachings. So regardless of who you think they are, we need to be thinking about, how do we see these people? Do we see them as God sees them? As people worthy of love and belonging and care, as people who God wants to participate in this kingdom of love and justice? And what does it look like to take a step towards those people instead of keeping an arm out, pushing them away? That's welcome beloved. And that could look a lot of different ways, right? Maybe it means showing up to conversations with curiosity and asking questions instead of making assumptions. Maybe it's prioritizing a relationship over being right. Maybe it means trying to listen instead of speak. Maybe it could be looking for the good in a person instead of considering only the bad. But like I said, it's a long process and it can be very difficult. But it has the potential to be very worthwhile and transforming. As you think about those conversations that could be had, maybe think about those people you've put on the other side, I do want to say a few caveats as well that are really important to me. Take care of yourselves, right? If you're in a place in your life where you're struggling, right? You're running on empty, maybe mental health isn't going so well, emotional health isn't going so well. Now might not necessarily be the time to be bridge building, right? And having these hard conversations. Take care of yourself. That's important too. I'm not saying at all points, at all times, we should be trying to engage the other. And also be mindful of your spheres of influence, right? Like, who are in your circles? Because the potential for really positive fruit is higher if they're people we know. And we can build on the foundation of knowing each other in friendship and relationship. I am definitely not saying, hey, everyone, have really intense conversations with everybody you disagree with on social media or online for the sake of bridge building. That's probably not super healthy, actually. And finally, I want to say this, each of your safety is of utmost importance to me. So, in this specific community, this youth group, when we talk about welcome beloved, that is absolutely true. That's who we are. But there are healthy boundaries to that. To participate in that means you have to be a willing participant. So if there are folks who are actively harming others intentionally, you just let myself and some of the other adult leaders navigate that and engage with those people. I hope that all makes sense, especially in this season. May we help others and help ourselves and show up a little bit differently and not increase the divide, but maybe seek moments where we can be cracks of life and cracks of light for others when things sometimes feel overwhelmingly dark. Know that you are loved, and let's continue to help each other know that truth as well. Thanks, everybody.